The house smelled like reheated leftovers and one of those cheap cinnamon candles Mom lights either when she's cleaned or doesn't want to talk. I'd just gotten back from the library and opened OLX, just browsing, not looking for anything. Maybe a secondhand desk, something small that could fit in the corner. And that's when I saw it. A silver treble clef pendant. Same velvet box. Same crumpled ribbon I'd tied myself. Receipt tucked halfway into the frame like an afterthought. The photo was taken on our old coffee table, the one with the thin hairline crack near the edge that looks like a river. And next to it, our Oregon University mug. Ours. I blinked once, thought maybe it was coincidence, maybe someone stole it, except no, it wasn't that. Then I saw the username, LJ Art Girl. Leanne's account. I didn't react right away. Kind of just stared, like my brain had to lag behind my eyes before I could feel anything. 10 seconds passed before it hit. That cold kind of feeling. Not fear, not even anger. More like something tight pulling across your ribs when you realize you've been quiet too long. I bought that pendant with 2 weeks of side gigs. Walking dogs, babysitting, handing out flyers in the rain. She smiled when she opened the box, said cute, and left it on her bookshelf like it was just another birthday card. I took a screenshot, not to confront her, just to remember what it looked like. The mug, the ribbon, the listing title. 15, firm, no holds. Like a joke I wasn't part of. I walked down to the kitchen. She was curled up by the window sketching in a spiral notebook, wearing the hoodie I'd given her last Christmas. Didn't look up? That was sweet, she said. But silver doesn't work on me. I'm a warm tone person. I didn't answer. Opened my mouth. Closed it again. Because what was I supposed to say? Mom was rinsing a pan at the sink. Looked over like I'd interrupted some background hum and said, "Don't be so sensitive." She didn't know it meant anything. Dad, from the couch, not looking up from his show. "It's just a necklace. You're not seriously upset, right?" I didn't respond. Walked past them, up the stairs, into the room that still smelled like dust and mint chapstick. Pulled the Etsy receipt out of the drawer and sat with it. Didn't make anything clearer. Maybe worse. That night, I sent her a message through OLX. Fake account, no name. "Are you going to take the listing down, or should I go ahead and buy it?" No reply. Next morning, the post was gone. So was the necklace. She never mentioned it. Again. Neither did I. A few days later, Mom walked into the kitchen holding a cardboard box and said, "This is for Leanne. She wanted a subscription to those professional brushes. Can you help me place the order?" She said it like it was obvious, like it made total sense that I'd be the one to do it, even though it wasn't my account, not my money, not my birthday. I don't know why, but it caught me off guard. Maybe because mine had been exactly a month ago and all I got was a bag of Walgreens candy that was probably on sale. No one asked if there was something I wanted. Not that I expected them to. I guess I've just stopped expecting altogether. Later that day, Dad asked if I could take a few pictures of Leanne with her new canvas. Something for the family Instagram, he said, like we were a brand. She stood by the window, holding a paintbrush, like it was a trophy, while I adjusted the light to make her skin look even. No one ever asks for pictures of me. I don't think they'd know what to caption it. At dinner, the conversation turned into one long monologue about Leanne. How gifted. She was with negative space. How expressive her palette had become. How Grandpa mailed her $50 after seeing her sunflower piece. I tried to chime in, said my GPA had gone up this quarter. No one interrupted. No one responded either. The silence was worse than if they had. Earlier at school, my English teacher had handed me back an essay with a sticky note. "You're always quiet, but your writing cuts straight to the heart." That single sentence meant more than everything I'd heard at home all month. I tucked the paper into the front of my notebook like it might protect me from something. That evening, while everyone was watching TV, I printed out the essay, trimmed the margins, and pinned it on the living room wall, right next to a photo of Leanne holding a brush. It stayed up until morning. By breakfast, it was gone. In its place was a note written in ballpoint pen. "Please don't stick things on the paint, it damages the surface." I didn't ask who wrote it. Leanne looked up from her phone and asked, "Hey, can you watch the dog this Saturday? I've got the showcase thing." And before I could even think, I said yes. It hit me later. My yes didn't even feel like a decision anymore. It was more like background noise, something automatic, like the click of a seatbelt or flipping a light switch. Which makes me wonder, how many things have I agreed to without realizing I had a choice? That weekend, while Leanne was out showing off her work to strangers in a downtown loft with exposed brick and mood lighting, I was at home refilling the dog's water bowl and folding laundry that wasn't mine. Mom walked by once, said, "You've always been such a helper." I nodded. I didn't know what else to do with that sentence. Later, I caught myself scrolling through old texts, looking for one from her. Any message that wasn't a request. There weren't many. Most of them were just reminders, links, the occasional "you good?" that felt more like maintenance than care. I thought about replying to one with something honest. No, not really. But I didn't. I closed the app. The evening I walked past her room. On her door, a printed flyer from the art show. Her name in bold serif font, featured young artist. Underneath, someone, maybe Mom, had taped a post-it. "So proud of you," with 3 hearts. I stood there for a minute. Then I went back to my room and pulled out a notebook. I didn't know what I was writing. I just needed to get something out. I wrote about symmetry. Not the mirror kind, but the illusion of balance. How sometimes it looks like 2 sides are being treated the same, until you look closer and realize one side is holding all the weight. And for the first time, I didn't write it for a grade or a competition. I wrote it for me. It started during Silent Week at school, a thing our guidance counselor invented to get people to reflect inwardly and listen outwardly. Most students treated it like a joke, but there was this open mic event at lunch for anyone who wanted to read something personal. I wasn't going to do it. Honestly, I almost walked right past the sign-up sheet, but my name ended up there anyway. Someone, probably Ms. Carpenter, must have written it down. And the weird part? I didn't cross it out. I spent the entire morning anxious, couldn't eat, couldn't focus. My stomach was this tight knot of no thank you. But when they called me up, something in me stood. I walked up, held the page like it was a permission slip, and read the essay I'd written last fall, the one I thought no one had really noticed. And when I looked up, the room wasn't fidgeting. It was still. A kind of still I hadn't felt in months. Afterward, a freshman I barely knew came up to me and said, "That felt like reading my own brain. Do you post your writing anywhere?" I shook my head, but something about her asking made me want to. That night, I logged back into a blog I hadn't touched in almost 2 years. Changed the name, made the layout plain, uploaded 3 pieces, unedited, raw. I turned off comments. I didn't want feedback. I just wanted them to exist somewhere outside my head. Back at home, no one asked how school went. The house was quiet, but not the good kind, more like the kind where you start wondering if anyone even noticed you came back. I made myself toast for dinner. The butter tore through the bread and I didn't fix it. The next morning, Mom asked if I could help pick frames for Leanne's new set of paintings. "You've got such a good eye for words. Maybe you've got one for color too." I said sure, because what else was I supposed to say? We went to the craft store and she held up 2 options, gold trimmed or slate gray. I picked the gray. She bought the gold. That same afternoon, I stopped by the thrift store. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just walking off a kind of buzz I didn't have words for. Ended up buying a thick blue-gray throw blanket. $10, a little frayed at the corners. And for the first time in a while, I let myself call something mine without apology. At home, Leanne and I barely crossed paths. She was either at her friend's place, prepping for the show, or curled up in the den watching speed paint videos. I left the blanket on my bed and didn't tell anyone. It was small, but it was mine. 2 days later, I noticed a new drawing pinned in the hallway. Leanne's. Vivid purples and pinks, a swirling sort of galaxy scene. But what stopped me wasn't the art. It was the caption, written underneath in marker, my words from the essay. "You are our light. And underneath, in Mom's handwriting, for Leanne. I stared at it for a long time, not in anger exactly, more like confusion wearing a mask that almost looked like calm. At dinner, Dad saw me looking at it and said, "Pretty nice, huh? We thought it really captured something. You don't mind, right? That we were inspired?" I said no. And I don't know if that was a lie. I really don't. That night, I closed the door to my room and pulled out my journal, the one with the half-torn cover and bent spirals. I didn't write anything for a while. Just stared at the page, wondering what happens to a sentence when it no longer belongs to you. Does it still mean the same thing? I tried to tell myself it was a compliment, that they were proud, that using my words was their version of including me. But it didn't feel like inclusion. It felt like being mined. The next day, my English teacher stopped me in the hallway and asked if she could submit my essay to the regional student writing showcase. I hesitated, then nodded. "Sure," I said, even though part of me whispered, "But what if they say it sounds too much like your sister?" On the bus ride home, I checked my blog stats. Someone had bookmarked all 3 posts. No comments, no shares, just a star on each one. A quiet little nod from the void. I don't know why, but that meant something. When I got home, the hallway was empty. The framed galaxy drawing had been moved to the living room wall. I could hear my mom on the phone telling someone about how Leanne's always been so visual. The blanket I bought was now folded neatly at the foot of the guest bed. I stood there for a moment, then picked it up, brought it back to my room, and shut the door behind me. Update. A few weeks passed. I'd mostly stopped checking email unless it was for school. So when I opened my inbox and saw the subject line, "Congratulations, Regional Student Writing Showcase," I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe it was about the essay Ms. Carpenter submitted. I clicked, scanned, and stopped halfway through the first paragraph because it said I'd won. Only, not exactly. The email congratulated Leanne. I blinked at the screen, scrolled back up, read it again, slower. It said, "Leanne James, for her essay, The Weight of Words." And the thing is, that title was mine. So were most of the sentences. Quoted underneath. I didn't panic right away. I told myself maybe it was some weird mistake. Maybe we had accidentally submitted the same thing. Even though we hadn't. I opened the competition website. There, under the list of high school winners, was her name, in bold serif type. The essay was attached as a PDF. I opened it. It was my piece. My early version, from months ago. I recognized every line, every pause, except some parts were trimmed. Others rewritten just enough to sound less raw, more polished. One paragraph had been moved entirely, but it was still mine. I'd written it curled up on the floor with a pencil and a migraine and too much tea. And now it was hers. I went straight to my blog. It was gone. Not just hidden, deleted. The entire page, the archives, everything. I checked the linked email. It was locked. Invalid credentials. My hands went cold. I refreshed twice, then closed the laptop and just sat there. Because what else do you do when your voice disappears and shows up in someone else's throat? Eventually, I found the fine print on the contest page. It said entries could be submitted by a parent or guardian on behalf of a minor. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere. When I asked Mom about it, calmly, almost like I was just confirming a detail, she said, "We thought it would be nice for Leanne to feel talented too. You've had your moment, right?" I didn't know what to say. Before I could think of anything, Dad chimed in from across the room. "It's just a school contest. It's not court." That night, I printed out the original version of the essay. I circled the edits, underlined the parts that were lifted word for word. I didn't sign my name. I left it on the kitchen table. About an hour later, Leanne sent me a message. Not a text. A DM, like it was safer that way. "Why are you doing this?" she wrote. "You weren't even gonna enter." I didn't reply. I just closed the app and packed a few things. My notebooks, the charger, the library copy of How Language Works. Nothing heavy, just the pieces of myself I didn't want left behind. At the front door, I didn't slam it. I didn't leave a note. I just left. The bus stop on 16th and Alder was quiet. Overhead lights flickered and the timetable was wrong like always. But a bus pulled up anyway. Empty, door open, and for the first time in weeks I stepped forward without hesitation. Not because I had a destination, but because I finally knew I couldn't stay. The driver didn't ask questions, just nodded like I looked like someone who needed to go somewhere else. I picked a seat near the back and sat with my knees pulled up, bag on my lap. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't anything, really. Just quiet. As we pulled away, the houses blurred. The porch lights, the yards, the mailboxes. Familiar things rendered soft and meaningless. I didn't cry. Not yet. I think I was waiting for the grief to arrive like weather. I thought about texting someone, maybe B, maybe Miss Carpenter, just a, hey, long story, but I left. But I didn't want to explain. Not tonight. The bus hummed forward, passing the closed diner and the 24-hour pharmacy. At a red light, I saw my reflection in the window. I didn't look strong. I didn't look brave. I looked like someone who was done waiting for permission. And that was enough. The basement room wasn't much. A mattress, a space heater that made a sound like a dying lawnmower, and no windows. But B's sister had moved out for college, and the offer came fast. You can stay? For a while. I didn't ask how long a while meant. I just said thank you, set my bag down, and told myself it wasn't permanent. Even though some part of me knew it would have to be. At school, I kept my head down, stopped answering to Annie in class roll calls. I asked to be called by my middle name, Ray. Teachers adjusted. A few students gave me looks, but mostly no one said anything. It felt like sliding into a version of myself that already knew how to disappear politely. One afternoon, the vice principal called me into his office. He smiled like we were about to chat about grades, then said, "Your parents are worried. They say you've isolated yourself." I didn't respond. He tried again. "Forgiveness can go a long way, Ray." I said I'd think about it. I didn't mean it. Later that week, I opened my locker and found a plain white envelope. No name, no handwriting. Inside was a flash drive. I almost threw it out, but curiosity got me. I plugged it into the school computer lab after hours. It held scanned pages, my old drafts, stuff I'd written and abandoned. Some had margin notes in my handwriting. Things I'd only ever scribbled in my paper journal. There were timestamps. Each file date matched the days I uploaded to the blog. Someone had been saving them, not just reading, archiving. I didn't know whether to feel violated or seen. That night, I submitted my application to Portland State Linguistics program. B let me use her address as my current mailing contact. I didn't ask her parents. She said she'd explain later. 2 days after that, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, my mom's careful cursive. It said, "You've cut yourself off. We were always here." I read it out loud, alone. Each line felt like a soundcheck of the past. I realized no one was ever here, even when we were in the same room. On Friday, someone taped a local article to the student bulletin board. Eugene High winner takes first place in regional writing contest. Leanne James. There was a blurry photo of her standing beside a banner. I tore the page down, folded it into fourths, didn't rip it. Just slid it into my bag like a receipt for something stolen. The next morning, B's mom offered me pancakes. I said no, but she made them anyway. I ate two, didn't taste a thing. Afterward, I sat in the basement and tried to write. Nothing. Came. Not even fragments. It was like my sentences were still being held somewhere I didn't have access to. I started walking to school early and staying late. Hung out in the library between classes, rereading old grammar books and making notes. In the margins just to see if I still could. Some days I sat by the window and stared at the cars, wondering how many people out there lived with entire chapters erased, and no one noticing the silence. One afternoon, B found me sitting on the curb after track. She didn't say anything. Right away. Just sat down next to me and handed me a candy bar. "I know I can't fix it," she said. But I'm glad you're here. I nodded, didn't say thanks, but I didn't need to. I think she knew. That night, I pulled the article back out of my bag and unfolded it carefully. I read every line, even the ones I'd already memorized. Then I flipped it over and started writing on the back. Not a story, not an essay, just words that were mine. And this time, I wasn't going to delete them. Spring came in wet and sideways. The kind of rain that doesn't fall, it drifts, gets inside your sleeves, your socks, your thoughts. The school's spring showcase was still outside, though, under white tents that sagged in the middle. I stood under mine, holding an umbrella in one hand and a tablet in the other, the screen glowing with an email from the local paper. They wanted to publish my piece. My actual piece. With my name, Ray James. I didn't smile right away. I read the email twice, then a third time. The editor said it had clarity and restraint, said it understood voice. I wondered how many years I'd spent making sure my voice didn't get in the way. Across the lawn, Leanne's exhibit took up 3 panels. Abstract swirls in soft pink and dark navy. A series titled The Space Between Us. I stood far enough away that I didn't have to pretend to admire it. Mom was near the center tent, chatting with a couple from the Arts Council. She gestured toward Leanne's work and said, "She's always been a natural, just effortless." I don't think she saw me. I walked to the check-in desk where they were collecting student work for the school archive. They had printed copies of the upcoming publication. I signed one for the library. Wrote, without pausing, "For those still learning to hear their own name." Dad passed me on his way to the coffee booth, glanced at the table. "You're happy, right?" he said. It wasn't really a question, more like a requirement. I nodded, and realized I no longer waited for him to notice when I wasn't. Later that night, I checked my email again, twice out of habit. The confirmation was still there. No one had taken my name off the byline. The next morning, I got the letter from PSU. Large envelope. Thick. I opened it slowly. "We are pleased to offer you admission." I didn't read the rest. Not because I didn't care, but because I already knew it would say what I needed to hear. That afternoon, I started packing. Not a lot, just enough. A few books, a mug, my blanket, some clothes. And in the corner of the box with my journals, wrapped in tissue paper, was the pendant. The same one from months ago. The one I had bought, and then lost. There was a note. "It was always yours." No name, no handwriting I recognized. I held it for a second, then folded the note and left it inside the box, tucked between the pages of my grammar workbook. Not to forget. Just to remember better. The drive out of Eugene was gray and slow. The clouds hung low enough to touch, like they hadn't made up their mind. I cracked the window. The air was cold and damp and full of everything I didn't need to say out loud. I didn't cry. Not when we left the city. Not when I passed the high school sign. Not when B texted, "Update me when you land." I just looked out the window and let the road carry me. For the first time, leaving didn't feel like running. It felt like walking toward. Not a statement. Not revenge. Not erasure, just movement, just enough, and absolutely not for sale.